yeah. Well, I left a message. Thank you, sir.
How's the retire life treating you?
Probably could provide you something better than that box, you know?
Well, I know.
Where is the good box?
We have a good box. We have a big box.
Where is it?
But I didn't think we were going to get, this turnout would have been worth the bigger box.
There you go, Frank.
But what are you going to do? Now, see, now that Mary's retired, she can, comment on all the town affairs over here. She can,
But we do. We have the good wooden box. We usually.
We do have a good wooden box.
That one's lighter and it's hot out.
This is my summer. This is the summer box.
The person who really wants to be here is in New Hampshire. So he said, before he said, can you do me a
Ray?
favor? And I said, what do you need?
Yeah.
Because we're taking that up. Can you go to the meeting? And he said, tell my niece I'll give her an ice cream cone if she goes.
There you go. Hey.
Here we go.
All right, Joan.
Long time no see.
It's been 8 hours.
Is that long?
How are you? Good, thanks.
Hang on.
Welcome. Thank you.
You need a pen?
Do I vote now?
I mean, no, not yet. No, the question not until the question's asked. I mean, you could write you could write your vote down. You could hold it.
Do we do this yes?
It's a yes or no. Yes.
Good, Rob. Good.
Yeah, hold on to that. Oh man, where's Irvin? Come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
You should be here. we give him hell tomorrow. Where were you?
It's all or nothing.
Good, how are you?
Could have just brought the DD214 tonight, I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. You and I still have to sign it too.
Yes, sir.
What time is it?
I think also so does Mr. Kuzminski.
Yep. Lila, are you voting too? Okay. Okay. I didn't. When did you register? You might be in. I don't know.
You go. How you doing,
They're
April?
not risky.
Yeah, well, how are you?
Okay.
Oh, my pen's in my bag.
How we doing? Good.
But next time you're voting, all right?
This message. How you doing, Laura?
I'm all right. What's my name? Here we go. I can manage that much right now. Thank you very much.
You sure this guy's registered?
Yeah, I gotta take a double look at this guy.
You might vote twice.
You need a pen? Yeah. Here.
Here you go, sir.
I don't get 2 for 1?
Nope.
A pen? No one? You need a pen?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and vote now?
Here you go.
This guy over here. Still let anybody vote these days.
So. Oh.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Has everyone who is voting at tonight's meeting signed in and gotten the ballot? Just, if you just came in and you would like to vote, make sure you sign in. Okay. Cool.
There you go. How many?
You got your ballot?
I don't run yet. So we have 28 tonight.
All right, so let's see there. All right. You got it?
Just don't want to take the curtain down.
All right. So, it is 7:04, and I will now call this special town meeting to order. The first order of business is to elect a moderator. Are there any nominations?
Nominate Jim Tripp.
Thank you, Susan. Is there a second? Thanks, Mike. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Thank you, Susan. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Jim.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, I'm going to read the call of the meeting, and I'm also going to ask at this time that, along with the return of notice, that our town clerk, Ryan, take the minutes as well. All right. All right, this is the legal notice. This is the legal notice as published in the River East on July 16th, 2021. Legal notice of special town meeting, Wednesday, July 21, 2021 at 7 p.m., Buck Foreman Community Room, 265 Main Street, Portland, Connecticut. Pursuant to Section 503F of the Town Charter, a special town meeting will be held by the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday, July 21, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Buck Foreman Community Room, 265 Main Street, Portland, Connecticut, for the following purpose. Item 1, to consider and vote on a resolution. A, that the town of Portland finance the projects described in the capital improvement plan included in the town's 2021-2022 budget using capital lease proceeds under a lease purchase agreement with a total principal amount not to exceed $1,500,000 and a term not to exceed 7 years. This will be known as the lease purchase agreement. The lease purchase agreement will finance equipment and vehicles for the Board of Education, Fire, Grounds, Police, Department of Public Works and Highway, and townwide closing costs. Item B, that the first selectwoman is authorized to determine the terms and conditions of and execute and deliver the lease purchase agreement and any related documents and contract with contractors, vendors, and others on behalf of the town to complete the projects. Dated this 8th day of July 2021 and attested to by Susan S. Bransfield, first selectwoman.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right, at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion to introduce the resolution entitled, Resolution to Authorize a Lease Purchase Agreement to Finance the 2021-2022 Capital Improvement Plan.
Resolution, and I move its adoption.
Motion's made by First Selectwoman Bransfield. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. Thank you.
Who seconded that?
Seconded by Mike Hernandez.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, I'm now going to read the resolution that we'll be voting on this evening. Resolution to authorize a lease capital purchase agreement to finance the 2021-2022 capital improvement plan dated July 21, 2021. Be it resolved, A, that the town of Portland finance the projects described in the capital improvement plan included in the town's 2021-2022 budget using capital lease proceeds under a lease purchase agreement with a total principal amount not to exceed $1,500,000 and a term not to exceed 7 years, now known as the lease purchase agreement. The lease purchase agreement will finance equipment and vehicles for the Board of Education, Fire, Grounds, Police, Department of Public Works and Highway, and townwide closing costs. And item B, that the first selectwoman is authorized to determine the terms and conditions of and execute and deliver the lease purchase agreement and any related documents and contract with contractors, vendors, and others on behalf of the town to complete the projects. At this point, I'll open it up for discussion. Seeing no discussion, we can proceed to the vote. If everyone would like to vote, and then come and cast your ballots up here in the box.
And Sharon, I know you just came in. If you'd like to vote, you can. If you want to sign in and get a ballot. Saw you sneak in back there.
Thank you.
Here you go. Oh, anybody need pens? Need a pen?
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely should have gone with bigger ballot box tonight, but. Here, anybody need pens?
That's all right. It'll work just fine.
It'll work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Has everyone voted? Who's voting tonight?
Has everyone who signed up to vote voted? Just want to make sure before we count.
All right, let's do it. There you go. This file?
My suspicion is we may only have one pile.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't you do, I'll just do a file, and then if we see a no, we'll do his own file.
The biggest thing to make sure we get it correct.
The count, yeah. Wasn't counting on 10? Yeah, let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. There was a 10. We should have
29.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
All right, so 29 to nothing. You need to keep all these, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Yep.
good if I put them in?
Yeah.
All right, the motion passes. The vote was 29 yes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions. At this time, do we have a motion to close the meeting?
Second.
Motion, do we have a second?
Thanks.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting's closed.
7:12. All right, thank you, guys. Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
Boom. We're getting good at this. I think that's enough for a while. Honestly, you gotta talk to Susan. You gotta.
I think you know what it is because there were things that we held.
I know.
Because you want to do this as opposed to.
True.
So. What's that? What was it?
Yeah.
What's that one?
Yeah.
I know for a fact he
Is there
doesn't.
something you wanted to ask me? Or,
What?
no.
No, I just don't forget your cashews.
In case it's a long meeting, I got refreshments.
By the way, I gotta commend you. I saw that picture that you posted on Facebook,
Oh.
and I don't know how you did it,
know.
but you got Tom
Magical.
Robinson
I
to
know.
smirk.
I know. You know, there was money in this bucket. The check was
He
delivered.
actually had a little
I
smile.
know. Isn't it nice? I like that picture.
It's good. I was cracking
No,
up.
Rick is not here.
Where's Rick?
Rick is at a meeting in Colchester.
We're going to call the July 21, 2021 meeting to order. And the second item is to all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have quite a few minutes to approve, so we'll start with the special meeting of June 2nd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ralph. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any changes, errors, or omissions? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next is the meeting of June 23, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll
So-
make them,
Go ahead.
what are we gonna do?
I'm gonna let you, you go. Go. Keep
Okay,
going.
I'll make the motion.
All right, break it up, huh?
Yeah,
All right.
and I'll second
Ralph,
it.
is there a second by Jim? Any changes, errors? Okay, there being none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. July 1, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you,
I'll second it.
thank you. Any changes?
Nope.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next one is July 7, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ralph.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. Any changes? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then the regular meeting of June 2, 2021. Is there a motion to approve, Ralph?
Yes, I make that motion.
Jim?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any changes
Nope.
suggested? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Lila, is Mike Pelton or Rick Shar on yet? They may join us later, so, okay, thank you. A motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ralph.
You guys are on a roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Under correspondence, I wanted to point out that the solar array that was contemplated for the transfer station, the landfill, the application was not filed in June. Instead, we're looking at hopefully putting it together for next June. The reason that it did not move forward is there was a stipulation by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection that the arrays that they were going to be funding couldn't be at an angle more than 15 degrees. And at the capped landfill, there were many panels that would be in such a situation. So even though DEEP wants to put solar on top of closed landfills and brownfields, most landfills are domed in shape, and all the panels that you could get on there, if this rule is followed, cannot. So we basically said we could not go forward with what the vendor had suggested. The vendor had suggested a much smaller array, whereby we would not have gotten as much leased income. So the committee, myself, Bob Shea, and Tom Robinson, along with our legal counsel, and I think you were on the call too, Lou.
Yeah.
We decided that it would not be a good time to go forward. So on August 18th, Rob Klee, our attorney, and perhaps Alan Sabins, who's our technical advisor, will come to this room, and they will talk to us about what I just said, give you some of the more details about how we can go about looking toward the third year of the shared solar array project. SCEF is what it's called. I'm not certain of what each of the initials is, but we'll talk about it, and hopefully we can be better prepared and even talk with DEEP. They're having hearings. They actually had a hearing 2 nights ago, and I think on Tuesday night as well. to talk about what the rules will be for the third year. I believe it's a 6-year program. So I will be submitting testimony, which is accepted through the 26th of this month, pointing out that if you're going to require us to only have things on a, not really a slope of any type, you're really looking at preventing these arrays to be on top of landfills. So if they can make that change or make an accommodation for landfills, that would be very well received. So look forward to more information on that. I wanted to point out also under communications, and I believe this was shared with the selectmen, I'll briefly go over some of the economic development updates that we have from Mary Dickerson, our town planner. Owen's Emporium at 283 Main Street is a new retail store featuring consigned products, including furniture, candy, gifts, and so forth. And they're looking at opening September 2021. Portland Ale House, which is located at 188 Main Street, should be opening later this month. And the final inspections with our fire marshal and the Chatham Health District are being completed. At 220 Main Street, Primavera Pizza is completing their final inspections as well. Portland Dental Care is scheduled to go once all of the permits are, I think most of the permits have been issued for the interior renovations and a building addition. That's in the old TD Bank building, and some of you may remember that LaMalfa Realty also was in there. That's a pretty big business, the Portland Dental Care, that will be going in there. They're looking at submitting a demolition permit for the garage, and because it's over 75 years old, the Historical Society has to review that. At Quarry View, they received a special permit modification to add camping as an improved use, and a zoning permit was submitted. Chatham Health approvals still need to be completed for that as of this date, which was July 13. Family Dollar out at 352 Marlborough Street is nearly complete with its interior renovations. Corin Restore Spa at 680 Portland Cobalt Road, a zoning permit was approved, and there's some other inspections that need to occur. Driven Enterprises at 34 Gospel Lane, permits for interior renovations to the existing building. Dairy Queen, which we're awaiting, at 900 Portland Cobalt Road. They're completing the exterior cladding and installation and inspection of equipment. They're hopeful later this month, but I was just talking to Lou, and it looks like it might be a little later than that, but stay tuned on that. Absolute Air, a little further east on 66 at 1116 Portland Cobalt Road. Zoning and building permits were issued and their bond was submitted. Brainerd Place did get the amount of money they owe us for the foundation permit. I don't know that the check has arrived, but the permit has been submitted. They also sent, from VHB, they sent their final plans. Had to do the details for the Department of Transportation. So that transportation information came into my office, and it also went to DOT, which is District 2, which is out in Norwich. So they'll approve that because there are some changes that will occur on Main Street and on Marlborough Street in anticipation of Brainerd Place. So things are moving along. We also received some of the underground utility work that Steve Sullivan, the engineer, is preparing on that. So there's work being done. Red Tech out of 173 Pickering Street have submitted permits for construction of a roadway on their site, and it looks like that will be moving ahead. We have a few home-based businesses. A home-based dog groomer at 173 Great Hill Pond Road has requested a special permit for a home-based dog grooming. Home-based software publishing at 88 Cedar Terrace also submitted a zoning permit. And we've ordered benches for 188 Main Street. There was an accident or a car took out the bench. So I'm glad nobody got hurt there, but they'll replace that bench. I also ordered a new picnic table. at the preschool playscape near the library, there's sort of these really dippy benches on the, they're really dippy. So we're gonna have our maintenance department fix those benches, and we can reuse that table, picnic table. But we ordered a new one that has handicapped accessibility on either end of the now straightened boards. So, and there'll be one at the back of Town Hall. I've had a lot of people come by, they bring their dogs, or they bring their children, or they bring themselves, and they walk and they want to sit. So there'll be a new picnic table back there. Again, it will be handicapped accessible. So at either end of the table, people who have an assist or have a chair will also be able to enjoy sitting. I think it'll be near the, oh, you have to move for the lights to work. So hopefully that will work. So I'll tell you that Dr. Howard Rosenbaum, who used to be a selectman for many years and also was chairman of the Board of Education and also served on the former finance board, had a special birthday. He turned 90 years old, and we issued a town proclamation to him congratulating him, and he thanks us very much. Over in our sister town of Middletown, the fire department Deputy Chief Al Leary retired, and Fire Chief Bob Cronenberger retired. So I went over and presented them with thanks for all the work that they have done over the years for Portland, and they too send their appreciation to everybody. And we thank them for their many years. Bob Cronenberger is actually the emergency management director for Middletown, so we'll still be working with him. Public comment. I think Mike has something under public comment.
Yes, I do. I got an email from Glenn P.J. Eason from 13 Myrtle Road, Portland. His email stated, the Solidarity Task Force was given specific goals to accomplish within the town of Portland before the end of June. Working hard with the task force members, our town partners, and Portland residents, we were able to accomplish these goals and more. It was no surprise to me that the brilliant coalition of people working on and with the task force would rise to the challenge. What was a surprise how the journey to accomplish these goals has helped forge a new sense of solidarity in Portland. The task force has become a bridge connecting different areas of and people in Portland. Lifelong residents with new residents, civilians with civil servants, people with no or little voices to people with amplified voices and open ears. As Portland enters its next phase, the Solidarity Task Force will be crucial in continuing to foster solidarity in our town. Thank you, Glenn Eason.
Thank you for serving, PJ. Thank you, Mike. Lila, is there anyone on the chat? No? I don't have any other public comment. So we'll move on to old business, and April Graves is here for her report on racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. Welcome. Would you please take the podium? That way we can hear you on Zoom and the recording. Thanks, April. April is the chairwoman of the Solidarity Task Force.
Yes, so the Solidarity Task Force officially completed our role last Tuesday, July 13th, at our final meeting. We were tenured for 9 to 10 months to complete our mission, and that we did. So some of the activities that we did were we completed the community survey in January, and we ended up receiving 170 responses from community members, and from that led us to our community forum with town officials. We had the superintendent of schools, we had the director of curriculum, we had Board of Selectmen members, Sergeant Cunningham from the Portland Police Department, Mary Pont from Youth Services, and it was a very good conversation with a lot of good feedback. And then from there we had the community resource pamphlet. So the community resource pamphlet came about from the survey, where a lot of the comments were that people weren't aware of all the resources we had in town available to them. So that was sent out in May. And then in May and June, we had youth diversity forums, in which we had a small group of youth that came together and discussed their concerns around diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. And then a few of them decided to take part in our Juneteenth event. So at our Juneteenth event, which was worked together with the Chatham Children's Connection, the Portland Social Justice Coalition, and the town of Portland, we had a lot of very talented community members that gave speeches. They recited poetry, they sang, and it was a really wonderful event. We had approximately 120 people attend that day with us. Another thing that we did was we had the town organization's response to the Nazi symbolism that was placed outside of Biz. We came together quickly with other organizations in town to release a solidarity statement around that episode. And then we concluded with our Pride Rally. It was the first Pride Rally in the town of Portland. It was wonderfully received. We had approximately 40 people attend. We had a representative from Q Plus with us that day. And they did wonderful with education and explaining the roots of Pride and why it's so important. And we had a community member who, a 14-year-old, who did a wonderful job of explaining why pronouns are so important. So that concluded all of our activities from the task force, and now we're hoping tonight that the task force becomes a permanent town committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to every member of your task force. You've really done a nice job as the chair, April. I've attended many of the meetings, and it's really an impressive group, and I'm so glad you're proactive in the work that you've done. And everybody has really contributed quite a bit, including the selectmen liaisons and also police, youth services, the Board of Education. It's not easy to control all of us, and you've done a great job.
Thank you.
And give everybody a chance, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Letter B is appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions, and I think Jim Tripp has some nominees.
I do.
Now, I wanted to point out that we do have nominees for the Committee on Solidarity, that we're going to pass the motion in a few minutes, or the resolution, to establish that, but we're going to be nominating the members first.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, we can do that. All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint to the Solidarity Committee that it's about to be established the following individuals: April Graves, Barry Rogers, Glenn Eason, Noel Garrett, Jim Motes, Erin Livensparger, and as an alternate, Shelley Nolan.
Is there a second to that slate of names?
I'll second it.
Ralph, thank you. I will point out that there are some other openings for people that may be watching us today or on the recording, and they can get in touch with any of the selectmen or with me, and we'd be happy to entertain their nomination as well. So if there's no further nominations, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. All right, I also make some nominations for the Facilities Steering Committee. This is the committee that is evaluating our school facilities. As one of the Board of Education representatives, I'm going to again do this as a slate of folks. Meg Scotta, the other Board of Education representative, Dave Murphy, Board of Selectmen representative Lou Pear, other Board of Selectmen representative Mike Hernandez, and then community representatives Eileen Monahan, Scott Nickel, Peter Philander, and Donald Finkelstein.
Donna, right?
Yes, Donald Finkelstein. Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, are there any openings? I think there'd be one.
We have one, yeah, we have one opening that is being left for a community representative at this time.
And even when there aren't openings, if there's an interest by the community, to let me know, because you never know when sometimes circumstances change and people can't serve. So I want to thank our superintendent and our Board of Education, who's represented both here tonight, for giving us the suggested names. and we look forward to working on this committee and wish you well. There's a lot of work ahead, but I think it's time, and it should be a great group of people to work with. So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. I think there's another nomination.
I have one more, yep. I would also like to nominate Cynthia Roman as an alternate to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Is there a
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ralph. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Any other nominations tonight?
This tonight? No, that is it.
The next item is a little unusual. I think we've done this before. It is a resolution establishing our commitment to pollinator pathways. In the world of nature, there is a need to have more plants that are conducive for bees and butterflies and birds and moths and other insects. And there's quite a bit of research that's been done on this. Our airline trail group, of which our liaison is Mr. Payer, they have established a pollinator garden along the pathway that leads from the parking up to the airline trail. There is a lot of wildlife in that area, and having that pollinator garden started is certainly in the right direction. We also have quite a bit of these plants at our new recreational complex. As you go around the perimeter of the walking trail, you'll see a lot of these plants. Cattails are in the area when you walk in, and then there's a lot of clover along the walkways, which our folks don't have to mow because there's no need to mow that along the way, so it means that there's less grass mowed. And then we also, at the Riverfront Park, there's a new labyrinth that was put in place just this past spring and dedicated, and there are beautiful plants there. I know that Mary Pear had put some plants that are pollinator friendly, so those are just 3 different places. Our garden clubs also have participated in this and put them in back of Town Hall. There's some plants right as you come in and out of Town Hall, and we're asking that as we move forward, you'll see as someone will read the resolution, that we keep in mind minimizing pesticides, making sure that the kinds of seeds and plants that are there are healthy for the environment. And also, this pollinator pathways is something that we are promoting, not just because we've already been doing it, and it's a good thing to increase, but also Sustainable CT, which is a program of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, has within their 13 different initiatives to create a better environment and a sustainable town and a sustainable state, that you establish these pollinator pathways and that you commit to doing this within your town properties, and hope that your community residents and businesses also follow along. In fact, I noticed even at Cumberland Farms, where that, there's like a holding pond there, I think they have also put in some appropriate plants there. So some of our businesses have done this as well. I thought maybe Lou could read it so that you can get a little understanding of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And just as an aside of that is that when we do all these things, there are other designations and recognitions that occur, and Sue had mentioned that there's these Sustainability Connecticut. We are a bronze designated community, but there's bronze, silver, and gold. And so whenever you do things like this, it's very possible you can move up to the next level. One of the things that we just did with the airline trail, because we do have a pollinator garden, it wasn't just the pollinator garden, but it was a significant part to receive a designation as a Connecticut Greenway. And then, of course, with these designations and these recognitions, the state realizes that you're doing things in a positive way. And in so doing, when you're asking for state money for state projects, you have a better chance of receiving these funds because you've done some of the things that the state has asked you to do. So here's our resolution for pollinator pathways, dated July 21st, 2021. Whereas the town of Portland intends to protect pollinators in our community, and whereas we strive to protect our native plant and tree species in town, and whereas we collaborate with our vendors and suppliers as much as possible to use plants free of chemicals and that may be harmful to pollinators, and whereas Portland use integrated pest management, IPM, techniques on town-owned land, and whereas Portland wishes to maximize pollinator protection through such techniques as education, outreach, and creating pollinator gardens. And whereas we encourage the addition of clover to the grass and lawns and the reduction of the need to mow grass to every 2 to 3 weeks. And whereas we will work to identify areas where lawns are used for walking, playing, sitting, or other human recreation, and replace those lawns wherever possible with native trees, shrubs, and perennials offering resource for pollinators. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Portland, its public works department and grounds will strive to maintain, create, and improve its pollinator pathways, and will partner with such groups as the schools, garden clubs, airline trail committee, brownstone quorum, and other volunteer and civic groups, homeowners, and businesses to improve the pollinator pathways throughout the town of Portland.
Do you move the resolution?
I make that a motion to move pollinator pathways in Portland.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second it, but I'll just point out the second and last paragraph, Lou, just to, so no one who is listening. It's where lawns are not used for walking and playing, sitting, or other recreation. You happen to leave out the not, so I don't want to get anyone
Okay.
scared
Okay.
there, but I will second the motion.
Thank you, Ralph. Any discussion? So I'm putting together, with some assistance from others, the application that will go into Sustainable CT in August, late August, and hopefully we'll have enough points to move up a bracket. If not, it stays, and when you do finish all of your points, you do go up to another bracket. And I want to point out that the Jonah Center out of Middletown had done some crowdfunding, which is something you can do if you're active in Sustainable CT. And through that action, the Sustainable CT matched dollars. And they've been able to put, I think, about a dozen trees throughout the town on both public and private land. So there's a lot of good things that come about, and I think it's important to recognize the good work that's already done in the town. And I want to thank all the groups and our grounds department and our public works department that do a lot of this without a lot of fanfare, but it certainly is important, and the work they do is generous and very highly acclaimed. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of this resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Is there anyone on no? Okay, so the selectmen haven't arrived, the other selectmen. I just wanted to make sure, certain, Sharon, so it's just us. I declare the motion is passed. Thank you. Okay, the next item is establishing a committee on solidarity. Would Mike Hernandez like to read that for us? Do you have a copy, Mike?
I do.
Thanks.
Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, July 21st, 2021, establishing a committee on solidarity. Whereas the Portland community stands strong against injustices wherever and whenever they may occur. And whereas specific concerns by some residents regarding LGBTQ race and physical and mental challenges were expressed in recent survey conducted by the Task Force on Solidarity. And whereas there is no room for bias, racism, bigotry, prejudice, or violence in our town, state, nation. And whereas we stand for the love and care of all, regardless of age, ancestry, color, learning disability, marital status, intellectual disability, national origin, physical disability, mental disability, race, religion, creed, sex, gender, identity, or expression, sexual orientation, and status as a veteran. And whereas the Portland Task Force on Solidarity was established on August 16th, 2020, and has successfully accomplished all the many tasks it was assigned. And whereas, as this date, the Selectmen do hereby disband the Task Force on Solidarity because it has accomplished all of its tasks. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby are establishing a committee on solidarity consisting of 7 members and 2 alternates. And be it further resolved that the Committee on Solidarity is hereby charged to work for as long as it takes with the Board of Selectmen and all the townspeople to accomplish the following. Stand Portland strong against racism, bigotry, prejudice, and violence. Work together with all our residents to address racism, bias, bigotry, prejudice, and violence that happens here in our town. Welcome all residents to voice their concerns and to come together to create a positive changes in our town. Stand committed to peace, justice, and freedom for our citizens here in Portland and in solidarity with all Americans. Assist the town in working on a system-wide effort to find and eliminate weaknesses in our systems in order to create a more equitable path for all residents going forward. Commit to the protection of all current and future residents with special consideration for marginalized communities, and therefore welcome all people to our community. Help the town to recruit and appoint a diverse and inclusive workforce and volunteers to run our town. Together with Portland citizens, establish a vision for all municipal processes that will address, correct, and prevent any past, current, or future inequities for our residents. Report to the Board of Selectmen at least once a month on the Committee on Solidarity findings, activities, and suggestions for positive change in our community.
Do you move the resolution, Mike?
Yes, I'll make a move for the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Lou. Discussion? Jim, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just going to second. I will say, other than working with the task force, they did an outstanding job. I'm very happy to see that the majority of the folks that served on that task force are coming back to work on this committee. And it's an important thing for our town, and I'm glad to see that we're establishing it formally tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else? Yes.
We have a question from Christy Fuller on the pollinator relay. Is there any information, resources available to homeowners in Portland who would like to contribute to the Portland pollinator pathway?
To talk about that, we will be having some information, Christy, on our website. And certainly, if you have some information or want to share plants and things, get in touch with my office. That would be helpful. But I'm in the process of working with you, Dave, and Lila to put some things up on our website that'll give you better instructions on that. Good question. So I called for the vote on this, and we're all set. Did I call for the vote yet?
No.
No, we need to call for the vote. There's
Yep.
no other discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next, we have a guest tonight, Margot Burns, who is, I believe, an environmental planner at the River Valley Council of Governments, is here tonight. And you have a resolution in front of you, but before we review it, I'd like to ask Margot to address the board. Thanks for coming
You're
to
welcome.
Portland.
Yeah, good night, everyone. Good evening, everyone. The end of a long day. My name is Margot Burns. I'm the Senior Environmental Planner at the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments. And I'm here to help with the adoption of your update to your 2021 Lower Connecticut River Valley Hazard Mitigation Plan.
I think we're going to try to adjust that microphone for you, Margot, so the recording will work
Okay.
better. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. So I just wanted to go over a couple of important things on it so that we're all on the same page moving forward. It's a plan that needs to be updated every 5 years, and we're going to try and have meetings every year to keep everybody up to snuff so that it's not such a big project at the end. The purpose of the plan is to reduce loss of life, reduce damage to property and infrastructure, reduce costs to residents and businesses for things like insurance, repair costs, and taxes, reduce municipal service costs, educate residents and policymakers concerning natural hazards and mitigation possibilities, connect hazard mitigation planning activities to other community planning efforts, and enhance and preserve natural resource systems. Let's see, every community is unique, but some common mitigation actions include replacement of undersized culverts, floodproofing a school or fire station, purchase of a flood-prone property for open space, or creation of educational material concerning natural hazards and mitigation actions for community citizens. Our consultant on the project was Dewberry Engineers. Scott Choquette was the project manager on their end. They did a great job. They are the firm that did the state plan of natural hazard mitigation, as well as most of the other regions, if not all in the state. And so I just want to thank them for helping and and doing a great job for us. I want to go through the methodology with you for the plan, and that the first thing that we did was create a regional planning team, and Susan was your municipal representative on that. And she's responsible for coordinating the meeting and getting the word out in town about the plan. For your town meeting, we had Don Gowan and Robert Shea at the meeting, as well as Susan, myself, and Scott. In your packet of materials that I gave you, you have this summary that I'm reading. You have a frequently asked questions sheet, your town meeting minutes, from the planning meeting. You have our chart of regional projects. You have your town annex to the plan with your open to your town projects. And then you have the information concerning the FEMA grants that this plan makes you eligible for applying to. So we had 3 regional plan team meetings. We had the one town meeting with follow-up for edits and things, and another one for some towns if needed. 2 public meetings, April and September 2020. We did a public survey that had 75 responses. The plan, before going to adoption for the towns in the region, had to be reviewed and cleared by the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security at the state level, and then through the FEMA review. And now it's with the adoption process. The regional projects for the plan that everyone came up with was and agreed to was encouraging participation in the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System, educate and maintain updates to this plan, encourage best management practices for stormwater and promote green infrastructure, notify about grant opportunities. So this week we did send out an email about upcoming webinars concerning the grants, FEMA grants that are coming up. There was one yesterday that I listened to, and I saw a few other people from our region on that. A lot of information. I need to listen to it again, so it's a recording, and if you're interested in applying for a grant, it's definitely a good, you need to go watch it because there's a new grant application system, and it is complicated, but they do a good job of explaining it. Let's see, encourage generator or microgrid installation, investigate holding a certified flood manager course in the region, support communities in their water conservation efforts, reduce and prevent the effects of invasive species, ensure integration into other regional plans, endeavor to protect and conserve historic and cultural resources, small business education, encourage participation in sustainable CT, and you're doing a great job at that. Apply sea level rise projections created by CERCA under Public Act 18-82 as best available data. Support communities in their efforts to update floodplain management ordinances. Include flood susceptibility model data in municipal plans as a planning tool and help field check data. Assist municipalities in debris management planning. So for your town projects, this is what your planning committee came up with. Install emergency generators for all critical facilities and essential town facilities. Develop a GIS application to assist personnel to capture damages during a disaster for grant applications. Acquire asset management technology. Conduct engineering studies to assess flooding mitigation options for 36 listed locations, and those are all included in the table in your appendix. Develop and implement plan to prevent roads from flooding due to ice jams. Develop an earthquake recovery plan. Develop and implement a wildfire protection plan. Install water storage tanks adjacent to state forest to ensure ample water supply during a large fire. Research grant options to acquire severe repetitive loss properties and convert to open space and implement if possible. So that was your list of projects. And I just wanted to mention, out of all the grants that are on the information sheet, that the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, which they call BRIC for short, it's a 75-25 match, 75 federal, 25 local. And last year the round opened in September and it closed the end of the end of January of 21. So I think the time frame is pretty much the same this year. And then I wanted to just mention that as part of the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, FEMA requires us to use their loss estimation software to run scenarios for flooding, hurricanes, and earthquakes. And I wanted to let you know that Dewberry ran extensive hazardous models for you. And this is just an example of some of the data that's available and is in your is in the regional portion, volume 1 of the plan, but it talks about flood exposure of at-risk parcels, critical facilities, and historic assets for the town of Portland. And these values are in millions, dollars in millions. So if you ever want to take a deep dive into that data, we can. It's available to you as part of this planning process. And then the flood susceptibility study, which we're asking, it's a research study that we're asking our towns to help us ground truth. It's a project that we began in 2017 as a way to try and find a much less expensive way to do flood modeling and hopefully in the end be more accurate. We followed that up within this FEMA, within the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan with using better data for the model. Because in 2016, NOAA created some very good elevation data, LIDAR data, and land cover data for us at a very a much better scale than we used previously. And we feel that it did tighten up the model. It was a statistical modeling methodology, and in Annex C of the plan, if you'd like to read more about it, all the planning documents are there, research articles and things, and I encourage you to go there and read it, and hopefully we can find out where some of the data might be correct or incorrect in your town. Because much of our flood information about our region is stored within the minds of town staff and public works and not located in usable data sets. So if we can access that knowledge and give it to everybody, for future use, that's one of the things that planners in our region have been asking for. So we really encourage you to help us ground truth that data. And that's all that I have for you. Do you have any questions?
It's a good report, Margot. Thank you for giving that to us. I think
You're
it's
welcome.
very informative. As you know, we have a fair amount of flooding in Portland, given our topography, our geography, and just the adjacent Connecticut River and all the streams and so forth. And in fact, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about a grant that USDA is making available to the town for Old Marlboro Turnpike. There's a private residence that had a terrific amount of damage as a result of Storm Isaias, and we've received a designation of the 75%. It's about a $500,000 estimate, but we don't have the 25% in our budget to pay for that. So I'm going to just present that to the selectmen in a bit, and we'll probably have to have a special meeting to talk more about this. It's a very frightening set of pictures, and this last storm that just happened, I think it might have been Elsa, where we had quite a bit of rain. It's Reservoir Brook that comes from the reservoir and then goes along Old Marlboro Turnpike. If many of you are familiar, it's kind of deep in the backyards. And what happened was in August of 2020, a lot of trees fell. And when the trees fell, they created this pathway for the brook, which was raging, to go up. Everybody, do the wave.
Not working.
Dave, can you do a little dance? They were saving electricity, our lights go off. But it's really a frightening set of pictures because it has scoured the side of the backyard and really created a havoc. And you'll see, I sent the selectmen an email the family sent to me, and you can see how the brook was just raging in this last storm. It's a lot of money, Margot, and the folks at USDA thought they might be able to help us find other dollars to make the 25%, but as of yet, we haven't. I'll contact you and let you know a little bit more about that.
Okay, that'd be great.
You could help us. Jim Sipperly is our inland wetlands enforcement agent, and he had suggested applications for this because of the severity and really, as I said, the frightening potential. If this happens again, it could really be dangerous. I think a lot of the cost is associated with a huge crane that would have to come in.
So I don't know where this property is exactly in town, but this is one of the reasons why we created we're working on the flood susceptibility model, because we are a rural region. And so it's not that we don't have FEMA flood modeling, but not in areas where they didn't think there would be development, or, within very rural, small watersheds that can become these raging torrents at the moment, as we've seen. That's a great example, and just in the last week, all over the state.
Yes.
So that's why we really help, trying to figure out, is this a good model, or should we go in another direction?
And our town engineer would be a fabulous resource for that, because Jeff Jacobson and Associates have been with us for a long time, and not just Portland, but many towns. So I
Yes.
would recommend perhaps engaging with Jacobson.
Oh,
and
that's a great
Associates.
idea. Yeah, thank you.
He knows our town like the back of his hand. So, we have a resolution on the Lower Connecticut River Valley Hazard Mitigation Plan update dated May 2021. Jim, I don't know if you wanted to read it so everybody knows what they're voting on.
Sure. Do we want a motion to approve this evening, or were you looking to have further discussion?
I would like to approve the plan tonight. We're not, the example that I gave is not being approved tonight, but the plan that will help us when we need to apply for other help needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution titled Lower Connecticut River Valley Hazard Mitigation Plan Update, dated May 2021. This plan is dated July 21, 2021. For the purpose of adopting the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan as required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in order to be eligible for certain federal assistance for any natural hazards. Whereas the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act at 42 U.S.C. 5165 and 44 CFR Part 201.6 of the Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 require the municipalities to adopt a mitigation plan in order to be eligible for grants to implement certain mitigation projects. And whereas the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, RiverCog, municipalities have experienced past flooding and other natural hazard events that pose risks to public health and safety. pose risks to public health and safety, may cause serious property damage, and a plan is needed to address the results of these events. And whereas the planning process fostered by the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and set forth by Federal Emergency Management Agency, offers the opportunity to consider natural hazards and risks and to identify mitigation actions to reduce future impacts of such hazards. And whereas the state of Connecticut has provided federal hazard mitigation assistance program funds to support development of excuse me, guys. Whereas the state of Connecticut has provided federal hazard mitigation assistance program funds to support development of the mitigation plan. And whereas a hazard mitigation plan, known as the plan, has been updated by the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee and staff from Rivercog and 15 of its municipal members, including the town of Portland. And whereas the Hazard Mitigation Plan recommends several mitigation actions that will help minimize and reduce safety threats and damage to private and public property. And whereas a public meeting was held on July 2021 to present the plan and proposed mitigation actions and to solicit questions and comments. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Selectmen of Portland, Connecticut, that the Hazard Mitigation Plan, including Volume 1 and the annex for our municipality, is hereby adopted. Be it further resolved that the municipal officers identified in the plan are hereby directed to pursue implementation of the recommended priority actions that are assigned to their agencies. Be it further resolved that any action proposed in the plan shall be subject to and contingent upon budget approval if funding is required, and this resolution may not be interpreted so as to mandate any such appropriations. Be it further resolved that the Portland Department of Emergency Management is designated to coordinate with other offices and entities and shall periodically report on the activities, accomplishments, and progress, and shall prepare a progress report as required by the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Lou. Again, thank you to our COG for helping us with this. Without your assistance, Margot, we wouldn't be able to put this together, and the consultants really did do a really good job. I'm very happy with the work they provided, and I think this board, as well as our staff, look forward to working some more with you on that. And I think maybe residents watching this also know that they have the need for this kind of work. Any further discussion? Are there any questions in our chat on this topic or comments? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, Margot. Thank you. The next item is I'm asking for a referral to our Planning and Zoning Commission. Within the Plan of Conservation and Development, there is a map that talks about open space in Portland. And one of the areas where you would see on the map, and I think you have copies, is dedicated open space, which is in a dark green. And if you find Great Hill Pond, you would see that there are some town-owned properties that, at least on this map, are indicated as dedicated open space. Several years ago, the lake was developed, and one of the developers' last name was Bailey. And the development ran into some difficulties, and the town acquired some of the parcels, and some of them were acquired because of foreclosure, and many of them are very small pieces of property. And the Plan of Conservation and Development has asked that these be dedicated as open space and not be built upon or acquired, which would mean you couldn't, and hopefully not have, untoward development around the lake, which is a precious resource and a finite resource that we have. So what I'm asking is that while it's designated open space on this map, I don't know, and our town planner, Mary Dickerson, couldn't find anywhere that it actually has been dedicated. So I want to send it to planning and zoning, have them review it again, give us their opinion under statute 8-24, and then take further action to designate this as open space on these town-owned parcels. Before you vote, I'm just going to open up the map that Mary Dickerson had prepared for you, and we'll pass it to you. I'll just hold it up so the camera can maybe see it. It's difficult to show on the camera, but I will pass it along. I'll start with Lou, and you can take a look at the areas that are highlighted, and those are the areas that would be dedicated. I'm sorry?
No, he was just showing me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had a question about it.
I had one question.
Sure.
It looks like these places that are potentially open spaces are not on the water, so there's no waterfront.
There is two, if I'm not mistaken, on Farrell Road. One is a right-of-way, which we're going to talk about in a minute or two, and the other is what is called Farrell Beach. It's not a huge beach, but it's a small area that's on the water. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And that's the right-of-way.
right. I was looking over here.
The lake is owned by the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they own the dam as well. But the parcels surrounding it are privately owned, with the highlighted areas owned by the town.
Thank you.
Most of them are back there.
Would someone like to make a motion to refer this for review to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ralph. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Lou. Further discussion? It will come back to you after their recommendation and their review. All in favor of referring to PZC indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is related to this. On Farrell Road, there's a right-of-way that was given to a property. I believe it's number 6, but I could be incorrect on the address. I don't have that, but it's right near the beginning of Farrell Road. And the property has quite a bit of its septic system, its leaching field, under the right-of-way. And they also have some other utilities under the right-of-way. And their concern for the property is that while it is one of these open spaces, it hasn't been designated yet, and we hope to do so. They do have an easement from Mr. Bailey, which is quite a few years old. But they also are concerned that in the future, perhaps when there's not as many people aware of the situation, there may be future boards of selectmen that may want to sell this property. So they're looking for what I think is sometimes referred to as belts and suspenders, that should that occur, that property, not the individuals, but the owner of the property, would have the right of first refusal if that should ever happen. So I need to do a little more research on this with our town attorney, but I wanted to bring it to you and get some feedback from you. So I'll open it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could be a hardship on this person if somebody else bought the property, even though there's an easement on it. But if there's a clause that says that the person who has the leaching fields and other utilities has the right to first refusal, I think that would be a fair an equitable way of handling things. But I would refer it to the legal first.
Yeah. What I was told initially by Carrie Olson, our attorney, is that it has to come to you for approval. But I want to make sure that there aren't other considerations that need to occur before you take any action. But I wanted to just know if there's a interest in moving forward on this. And I heard one.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I agree with what Lou had to say. I think there's no harm in taking a deeper look at this.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not looking for a decision, but I will bring it back next time, or whenever I get the information, I'll
Okay,
come.
thank you.
Thank you. Now, letter F under new business is what I was referring to when we were speaking with Margot about this very dangerous situation on Old Marlboro Turnpike. Again, I don't expect an answer from you tonight. I wanted to alert you to this. It is an emergency situation. And what I would like to do is maybe schedule a special meeting where we just talk about it so that you can see what I'm talking about with pictures. And also, if you would look in your email, there is a short video showing the raging water that happened after that last storm. So, you really can't, I think it's very difficult to walk there. It's very steep. Everybody in the room may know where the falls are. There's falls, waterfall back there. It's not exactly there. I think it's a little closer to the reservoir. But it's a very dangerous situation that I think we need to do our best to try to help. There's nothing in the budget for paying for a private residence for this kind of a project. So I have to ask the owners.
What would the mitigation be to rectify this situation?
I think they'd get in there, Lou. They talked about moving some of that wood so that it's properly
So
aligned.
that the trees are causing it to not follow the same pathway. Okay.
And the erosion that's occurring. I guess what happened was the trees that are there fell, and their root system wasn't strong enough to hold the bank. But the water that comes, I don't know, some of you in this room I know have similar situations near their homes. Water is a fierce power. And if it's not properly directed, it's very dangerous, and we know that.
Is this person's house and deck at risk?
Could be,
Okay.
depending on future storms, yes. So again, I'll bring it forward again, provided you want me to proceed.
So is that this, I mean, I did see the video, I looked at it. So is it a single home that's directly involved with this?
It may impact, Ralph, some other areas along there, neighbors, but until tonight, I didn't want to bring it forward unless you want us to proceed. I mean, I've told USDA that we're definitely interested, but we have to come up with a plan for payment for this kind of a project. And I've spoken with the homeowners, and they're indicating their insurance company will not cover, but they'll have to look at other possibilities to fund this.
I think we need to look into this further, absolutely.
Maybe the USDA folks would come on Zoom and be able to show us like they did for me, and Bob Shea and I went through it with them. It's something for your attention. So both those items will continue. Mike?
I would just ask if we ask the homeowners to get a private entity in there to quote a price for me, so we know what we're looking at for costs.
Right.
Because maybe sometimes communities come together, they could set up a GoFundMe page.
Yep.
And that might help them one way or another, besides the town helping them.
Good idea.
It's just another option. I don't know what the cost would be, but if they can get us a cost number.
Well, USDA, and I'm hoping their number's high, but I don't know, Mike. You know, they're estimating over $500,000 for this repair, and 75% of that would be in a grant, but the other 25%, which is substantial.
Yeah.
But if you can get another entity to quote it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what their price is compared to a
Right.
private
Right.
entity, so if they wouldn't mind doing that, if they got the
I will
time,
look into that. I
just to
will
look
speak
into
with
it.
the
Numbers
homeowners.
help.
It's a good suggestion. Thank you, Mike. Okay, the next item is refunds of excess payments. Ralph, do you want to handle that for us tonight?
Oh, we're switching it up.
Yeah.
All kinds of curveballs at us.
Oh, man.
Jim will second it.
Jeez, I have to remember what we say here. I would like to make the motion to refund $106.38 to David R. Modzalewski.
Seconded.
Seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Make the motion to refund $2.50 to Mindy C. Petrick.
Seconded.
Seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Make the motion to refund $7.98 to Jeffrey and Amy Spooner.
Second.
Seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I'd like to make the motion to refund $276.80 to Toyota Lease Trust.
Second.
Seconded by Jim. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And finally, I'd like to make the motion to refund $3 to Marianne R. Willits.
Seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Under status and committee reports, I wanted to let you know that, and I think I may have announced that Mary Pont has retired June 30, and we sincerely thank Mary for the many years that she gave to our Youth Service Bureau and also as our acting administrator for the Senior Center. And for the interim, until we have a full-time appointed Youth Service Director, Ms. Meg Scotta, who's here tonight, has been serving as our interim and is doing a great job helping our Youth Service Advisory Committee, helping youth, working with the Juvenile Diversion Board, which works with our police, as well as looking at partnering perhaps with the library and Parks and Rec and other activities. You know that we often have activities in September when youngsters come back to school, families are back from vacation, and then we look forward to having some celebrations of Halloween on Main Street and things of that nature. And unless they're planned way ahead, you're really struggling. And Mary Pont always did that. So I'm happy to have you, and thank you, Meg.
Thank you. I love doing it, and I'm
Great.
looking forward to working with everybody and celebrating some great events.
Wonderful. And the position, it has been announced. There are some applications. I'm looking forward in August to perhaps having some interviews. And also, the Senior Services Administrator is also open. So we've received some applications and we're open to more. So if anyone's interested, please send in your resumes. Thank you. That's all I had. Status and committee reports from others. Ralph, do you have something to report?
Not a lot, but I'll just go over a couple things. Long Range Capital and the Portland Park and Rec did not meet this month, but on the Park and Rec side, I'd note two things. One is that the summer camp is going very well up at the high school and middle school complex, so it was good to talk to Nate yesterday and hear that everything's going really well. And the second thing I would note is that our concert series kicked off yesterday, and I wanted to say it before Jim, because I just wanted to say that, you know, it's a great start to the series. We had a good crowd, and it again shows the great partnership that we have between the Brownstone Quorum and Park and Rec to have established that years ago, and it's going very well. And looking forward to next Tuesday. Library Board, unfortunately, I was not at that meeting due to a conflict. And you stole my thunder on anything about the EDC, but I would note, one of the things to note that people should be aware of, and I'm sure they're aware of if you listen to national news, is that our businesses are struggling to find help.
Yes.
So that continues to hamper what they have, some businesses are changing hours because they don't have the help to work the hours they want. So that continues to be a problem.
Good point. Jim?
Yeah, a couple of things. So, let me show you my notes here. First, we'll start with the Board of Education. Had the Board of Education meeting last week. Few takeaways from that. One, they came out, they have identified they're not planning to run PVLA next year, which we all knew was gonna happen. They are gonna continue to make accommodations for folks that are on plans and that need to be remote, so they're gonna have options to do that. But in PVLA, the way it operated this year is not the plan. They're looking forward to being in person. This is something I know that we had done some work last year to help with this, and I'm not sure whether or not we could try to do the same thing, but they announced that they're discontinuing the school breakfast and lunch program in the month of August. It won't happen in August now. And I think 2 years ago, we had the same thing happen, and we ended up trying to work something through Parks and Rec. I have no idea if we have that capacity. I know we had a lot of volunteer support last time, but it has to do with the fact they weren't getting a lot of demand to run it through the schools, which, between the reduced demand and the cost considerations, they had to stop. In another nod towards normalcy, the Board of Ed did approve the cross-country camping trip. So, for this year, which is kind of a team-building trip that they typically do every year. They couldn't do it last year, and the one the previous year was impacted by Tripoli mosquitoes. Actually, it was a trip to go up and compete in an event in Vermont. So this will be the first time in a couple of years they've been able to do that. And similar to how we operate, Dr. Britton reported that the administration is continuing to look for alternate funding sources to meet certain priorities. They have applied for a grant to try, and this is a grant that can provide some reimbursement relief for Chromebooks if they're able to get a hold of it. They requested up to $210,000 in that grant, and they requested a $90,000 to $100,000 grant. This was called a school improvement grant to basically bring in a math interventionist at Gildersleeve School. So they're looking, just like we always do, for alternate funding sources to meet certain needs. As Ralph alluded to, the summer concert series got off to a great start. Personally, it was great to see so many folks out there. It was nice to see the community enjoying itself, and I just say it was. You could tell people were excited to be there, and it was a really good show. Next week is Mixed Signals, and I'm looking forward to that. And the food bank this year is, the next Monday, we're gonna be doing another food bank distribution. I always tell Ruth Mayo, I'll put it out as a PSA. We're gonna do another food bank distribution. It's gonna be the same type of event where we will be taking the boxes we get from the food share and putting them into the trunks of people's cars. At this point, we're good with volunteers, but we wanna make sure the public is aware, because it is not limited to folks who are registered at the food bank. It's for any folks in town that feel they have a need.
Very good.
That's all I got.
Anything? Luke?
Yesterday, we met with Alan Saban from CSW. He's one of these solar consultants that we work with in the community and with the Board of Education, and Board of Selectmen. And the projects that we've been working on with him are the solar array on Brownstone Intermediate, and it looks like that project can move forward. They have had some difficulty in getting some of the solar panels and some of the other materials, but they hope to get that installed before school year starts. However, it might not get done before then, so therefore they will work with the superintendent to see if they can install the hardware during the summertime and get most of it done during the summer, so there would be little amount of work during the school year. But we'll have to kind of see how that goes. The other thing that he talked about, obviously we talked about it earlier, about the landfill. That's on hold for one more year. But he did mention, and Andy Bauer, who's the chairman of our Clean Energy Task Force, he had also mentioned that there are rebates, and there are tax rebates as well as regular rebates for electric car or electric vehicle chargers, not only for personal use, but also for municipalities and for private commercial use. So that, we'll hear more about that coming forward, but the state and the federal government are pushing those things forward. On the airline trail arena, or on the view, is that we have received a letter from the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection, Lori Giannotti, that has said that the bonding commission had $3 million last year for trail development, and this year it could be more. A few more, you know, we don't know exactly how many more million, but the funding could be there. And in doing so, we're hoping that we'll be able to apply for a grant for our phase 2 of the airline trail, which would get us to Route 17. But in the meantime, the highest priority for DEP is to continue the airline trail from Portland to East Hampton through that area that is somewhat wet. So the plan is to build a boardwalk that would go over the water. Eversource has agreed for that to go through, and Eversource would send the wiring in a different route that would go through the East Hampton, I believe it's the water and treatment plant area. I think it's Gildersleeve Road. So that would hook up to Route 66 and 16, but it would not have to go through the airline trail. So we'll hear more as we go forward, but that looks like that could happen within a year or two.
Great, good news. Anybody else? Okay. Public comment, Lila? Nothing? Under informal discussion, we talked a little bit about, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, yes. I apologize, yes. Thank you, Meg.
So, as the interim director at Youth Services, the meals that are being stopped on July 30th because our summer program, enrichment programs, and all of the summer school programs are ending. I did look into this because this became a concern last year, and I would like to let the Board of Selectmen know that Youth Services could take that initiative on with the help of April from Chatham Kids Connection and Sue Malecki, I believe, who's the in charge of the commission for housing over at Chatham Court. The problem is that we don't have a facility to cook meals, but we could figure out, I know years ago CRT did bring things over and we were able to distribute. So we'll figure it out, but I'd like to take that as an initiative for the 2 or 3 weeks in August so that we can make sure that kids have food and meals. I think that's really important.
Thank you, that's great, Meg.
Welcome.
Thank you.
April,
That's important.
did you have something to say? No. Together. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Under informal discussion, we talked a little bit about sustainable CT earlier, and one of the things in discussing with some of our community and people involved with helping, you know, we recently had some really great programs in our town that brought different groups of people together. One was the Juneteenth, the other was the Pride Rally. There's been other activities as well, but one thing that I was quite impressed with is we had some folks that had written some poems and had come forward and engaged the audience in a poem that he had written and also felt. And one of the items in Sustainable CT is to name a poet laureate in your town, which would be someone that's inclined to write poetry or know the power of words and speak at various events, or maybe teach us a little bit about how to express ourselves in poetry or in the written word, which after coming through COVID, still living in COVID, and looking at the horizon, which I don't think has fully arrived yet, it's important for people to be able to express themselves, whether it's through their art, it's through their conversation, or it's through poetry. So one of the things I'm working with a couple of different groups on is maybe bringing to you in August the naming of someone that we feel would be a great candidate for this for an annual appointment. And it's something that we could do every year and maybe bring to the attention of all of us how we need to work together on the very many, sort of challenges that we have. Some are great challenges and we want to celebrate them, and others are challenges that really affect us and can make us sad and can make us cognizant of our vulnerabilities, like COVID-19. So I'll bring that forward to you. I'm working with the library a little bit on this as well, because the library does an awful lot for bringing culture and literature and art to us. And one of the things you have to do within this whole sort of arts and culture, if you're going to name a poet, you have to have that person working in your community. But you also want to publicize it, and you also want to publicize other cultural activities, which I know our library does well on. So while it's written in a nice way in Sustainable CT, these are things that our town are already doing, members of our town. So I'll bring that to you in August, but again, I don't like to spring these things on you totally. I want you to think about it, and you may have some nominees and some ideas. If you want to know more about Sustainable CT, I believe it's sustainablect.org, and you can go in and look it up. We're going to put some stuff on our website. I know Lila and Dave will help with that. It's really community building, and I look forward to working with you on that.
Is this going to be advertised in the River East or something, like Seeking?
We could do that. I don't know that I made this week's deadline,
No,
but I'll try for next week.
We
I
got
think
till
that's a
next
great
meeting,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll write a letter to the editor and say that these are things that we're doing, and we're looking forward to working with someone who's a poet, writer, and also interested in promoting some culture and arts in addition to what we're already doing. So it's a good idea. And talk it up yourselves among our school personnel, among our volunteer groups, other civic groups. There's lots of things that I think we can do.
Just as an instrument to encourage a written voice for poetry, is that the University of Connecticut does have a poetry and writers recognition program. And they print and they publish poetry and written word narrative of kids that have done this in schools. Now, I'm not sure how old it goes up to, but it might go up to high school. And there may be kids within the school that might be interested in celebrating their poetic voice.
That's great. I think once you start talking about this, you realize how many things are out there and that we don't always know about, and we can avail ourselves of. Any other informal discussion tonight? Questions or comments? Things going on? I don't think there's been too much at Town Hall. It's been pretty good. There's always something, but we're working. I will tell you, it was encouraging to have so many people at the town meeting tonight. We had almost 30 people here, and that's a great turnout for a town meeting. And I think people recognize how important it is that we support the infrastructure in our town, from a dump truck to an excavator to a new tanker, police cars and grounds equipment and other things, including Chromebooks and things for our schools. So that was great. Tom Robinson is working very hard. We have a very good bid that came in who will give us the money for this $1.5 million. The interest rates are extremely favorable. They're in the little more than 1% we're looking at. So it's really encouraging. And Bob Shea and others are working with Tom, along with Stephanie Fragola and Visar Mian. They're looking at how we can put these out and get these products purchased. Thank you, town staff. And with that, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lou. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is 8:55 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
That's interesting. Let me see that
Yeah.
again.